When it comes to Epic Universe, there's a ton of speculation out there in terms of the potential impact it will have in the Orlando area, how and if annual pass holders will be able to access the park. And there are some who think that Epic Universe will actually help Disney World versus negatively impact it. And there's an article here from the Motley Fool talking about this. So I want to go through this article and get some thoughts on it. So, hi, I'm Jared with Capture the Magic. And the article here again is from Motley Fool. And I think this has been in some other places. I did see the headline on some other places, but the Motley Fool one was what popped up for me. The article headline is Disney World's new rival theme park could be a blessing in disguise. All right, they go on here to say Epic Universe is going to be a game changer in Orlando, but it doesn't mean that all players can't win the game. Theme park operators live for the summer, not this summer. Global leader Walt Disney and its peers relish the opportunity to cash in on the longest of the school breaks, which features a surge in travel activity. However, investors are already drawing circles on their calendars around next summer when the first major new U.S. theme park in more than 20 years will make its debut. Comcast Epic Universe doesn't have a firm opening date beyond 2025 just yet, but the highly anticipated expansion to its Universal Orlando Resort is already turning heads for its richly themed lands, big budget rides, and differentiated attractions. It's expected to be a major draw for Comcast ascending theme parks business. But yet, once again, there are signs that muscular competition is going to help the House of Mouse more than hurt it. Okay. I'm curious as to see as to why. Actually, I haven't read this article all the way. I saw the headline and just going through this. So I'm curious to see what they have to say here. It says Epic Expectations. Comcast has been working on expanding its theme park presence in Florida for a long time. It began acquiring land for the purpose for more than 8 years ago, and it eventually revealed its intentions to set a 2023 opening date. But the pandemic pushed Epic Universe debut more than years down the road. Yep, it will be worth the wait. It will be worth the wait for Comcast when it's on the way it was when it introduced the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in Florida in 2010. Before expanding that theme to many of its other gated attractions worldwide, Comcast can give Disney a run for its money. When it's off and the company has had more misses than hits over the past 9 years at its Florida parks, it falls short. It's not likely to miss the mark this time. On paper, Epic Universe looks too good to fail, but it doesn't mean that Disney will suffer when it opens its gates. I mean, when we're talking when the Wizarding World opened, I mean, there's another video I talked about where the impact was, and there's been some, how much is Epic Universe going to help or impact Universal's attendance? Some of the figures were it boosted attendance of the original Wizarding World by more than 30 to 40% at Universal Studios, and it sustained it. So, yeah, I mean, I'd say the Wizarding World obviously is the most successful and the best thing that Universal has done thus far in terms of Orlando. And some of the rides, listen, I love what Universal does on a lot of things, but at the same time, they've had some misses on some rides. I mean, let's be honest, Fast and Furious is not a great ride. I don't think King Kong, Reign of Kong, I don't think that's a great ride. Jimmy Fallon, like there have been some that I think are duds for sure. But I agree with him here where I say I don't think Epic Universe is going to be that by any means. It says demand for tickets will outstrip supply for the first few weeks, if not months. So a lot of people will flock to Central Florida next year, bent on checking out Epic Universe, won't be able to get through the turnstiles. I mean, I don't. Well, that's a lot of assumptions right there. I think the way that Universal is going to do, I don't think people are going to show up necessarily in Florida and then be like, "Oh, we planned a trip and can't go." I mean, if I guess if you're going just driving or flying down to Florida without having tickets first, perhaps, but I don't think that's a lot of people that would do it that way. Earlier this month, the public got their first hint of what ticketing situation for Epic Universe would look like in its debut season. Some third-party ticket sellers were told that 3-day packages to Universal Orlando would be offered, but that only one of those daily admissions would be usable for Epic Universe. This suggests one or more of the following things. Universal knows that demand for the new park will be strong enough that it can essentially sell a day at Epic Universe to early adopters for the price of a 3-day ticket. Yeah. Comcast is aware that it will have a hot park on its hands, so it's taking advantage by bundling the first announced admissions with a pair of days at its older attractions. True. Universal realizes that the spike in visitors to Epic Universe next summer may come at the expense of attendance levels at its other parks. I mean, that's true. I mean, that is one thing of if you, I think the reason that, there's some other videos where we talk about this, and a lot of people have already talked about which Universal has come out and said they are going to do this at least on the first offerings with tickets, is bundle them with 3-day or more ticket packages. But I also think it's just Universal willing to, if you want early access to, one of the first ones to be able to at least get a trip on the books, are people who are willing to spend 3 to 4 to 5 days at Universal. So from a business standpoint, and they do have the leveraging situation, again, I understand it. I don't have to like it necessarily, and we still have we don't know how annual pass holders will be included in that or not included in that, but I understand it from a business standpoint. Said everyone gets to ride. All right. The good news for enthusiasts hoping to check out this shiny new gated attraction next year is that the 3-day bundle is just the first of the resort's announced offerings. 1-day tickets and annual passes will eventually roll out, possibly even in time for grand opening. That's true. And I think that's something a lot of people are missing out, is like that very well could be the case. It's going to depend on how those first initial offerings sell, but it still could, plenty for the grand opening. The 3-day ticket information is simply Universal's offering for folks who like to book their vacations a year out, competing with Disney World's advanced booking before its rivals locks in the market's most lucrative visitors. I don't think it's going to be a year out, though. Again, like I've said, I think Epic Universe is opening in the early part of 2025. So it's early, but it's not going to be a year. However, Epic Universe can only entertain a finite number of visitors at any given day. Early demand may not be high enough for the 3-day tickets to sell out at the first few days or weeks of the park's availability on the other end of its official opening. However, if the single-day admissions that follow will be enough to max out the first few weeks or months of capacity, why offer annual passes before the novelty wears off? If there are annual passes available, they will likely be highly restrictive, limited to weekday visits during the slow season until Epic Universe's honeymoon phase is over. I mean, that's very possible. Although if you're like a premier pass holder, I don't know. I mean, that not that they can't get blacked out, but I think that it's less likely to be less restrictive. It says Disney World will be fine. Okay. Smaller rival attractions including United Park. They just said it. Is there any reasoning to why they think Disney World will be fine? Smaller rival attractions including United Parks, SeaWorld Orlando, and Merlin Entertainment's Legoland Florida will also be fine. A surge in domestic road trippers and international tourists will converge on the Sunshine State next summer. To assume that just one entertainment stock will benefit from the renaissance at Comcast Resorts in Orlando would be to make the same mistake that folks made previously when they assumed that Comcast and United Parks would languish while Disney outspent them over the last few years on upgrades and expansion. So I think this is written by somebody who doesn't know a lot about at least the inner workings of the theme parks. I'm not saying that scenario can't happen. I'm not saying that Disney World won't see an increase potentially from Epic Universe, but the thing that is different is, first off, it's usually, and they talk about this in the next sentence, but the fact that Epic Universe would be driving this is a different scenario. Like Universal will be driving this and the others would benefit. That's a very different scenario than Disney's used to. And I wouldn't assume it's one that Disney would want to basically be like, yeah, our parks are doing okay this year because people are coming for our biggest competitor. Also, Universal is going and they're angling for people to stay at Universal for a week. I mean, they've come out and said this before that, currently speaking, Universal Studios, not everybody, but a lot of people will go to Disney and then they throw on a day or two at Universal Studios because you could do most of the things at Universal in a couple of days, to be quite honest. Epic Universe changes that. So they're trying to get people to choose Universal Studios over Disney World. You can't really do Disney World in a day or two. I mean, you can choose a park, but most people want to go and experience all the parks. So by forcing them to choose, it is going to impact Disney. Now, the question about is Epic Universe going to help Disney comes down to a theory that I've had for a while, is that right now the summer is slow for Disney World, and it's a little slow for Universal as well, which I actually expected, because if you're planning a big Universal Studios trip, I would assume you would just wait until Epic Universe opens. So I kind of theorized, okay, Universal may see a dip in attendance in this little time period before Epic Universe opens, but Disney World is seeing it as well. Now, there's a lot of factors which we talked about. It could be, a lot of it, I think, is economy, but I think a lot of it too is people are grown tiresome of the way Disney has changed in terms of nickel and diming. The things that used to be included are no longer included. It's too complicated. All these things that, basically people have gone, they haven't had the best time compared to how they used to, and a lot of people have maybe grown sour on going to the Disney parks. But at the same time, I wonder if Disney's lack of attendance is also because there's just a lot of people that have just decided I'm waiting till Epic Universe opens and I'm going to go over there. And if that's a scenario, I don't necessarily see Disney benefiting from that if people have this, they're looking at Disney and grown a bit tiresome of their ways and then decided we're going to go over here to Universal. Not that they wouldn't see an uptick from this year to next year, but historically speaking, I don't know about that. That's, again, a lot of this is just, it's all potential, but I don't think that necessarily that takes into account, like, they're talking market only and like all, rising tide lifts all boats. It's not necessarily taking into account as well the stuff Disney has been doing that people have not been liking. It says all the Central Florida theme park players have been riding Disney World's coattails for more than 50 years now. They're all posting record revenues and earnings with dramatic double-digit % increases in revenue per capita compared to pre-pandemic operations. With Comcast on track to draw larger audiences, likely at higher price points next year and beyond, now is probably a good time to consider owning. Well, okay, they're talking about owning shares of publicly traded players. That's their. Don't take financial advice from me. I don't think I would take it from them, but a rising tide should lift all ships. It says Chips and Dales. I feel like it's a very surface level article that they're just going off of historical trends, but I don't think Disney doesn't operate now, and the demand for Disney is different now than it was even 10 years ago. So I think if we were talking about a scenario where Disney, like, we cover the parks all the time and they have changed a lot, even in the past 5 years, especially since COVID, they've changed a lot. And a lot of the things that, used to, like, Disney was never cheap, but at the same time, you didn't have to buy, you didn't have the Fast Pass Plus used to be included. Now you got to pay for that, which is a major increased cost. Everything's more expensive. Everywhere things are more expensive, but we've talked about too at Disney World, they are more than double the cost of inflation on their food items, so they're outpacing inflation there. And there are still things that people enjoy that are great about them, but at the same time, it's, we've seen from our travel partners where, some of the surveys people got afterwards, which is one of the reasons why they're changing Genie Plus, is like people they didn't like Genie Plus. They thought it was too much. They feel like they were nickel and dime, that a lot of people were saying, I don't think we're going to come back. And we've seen that from the podcast firsthand, that people have said that to us. So while in theory, I do believe, like, if a rising tide lifts all ships scenario is a thing that historically can be the case, and it very well could be the case with this. What I'm saying is, I don't think it's taking into account people's attitudes towards how they look at Disney World now versus how they looked at Disney World like a decade ago. And I think a lot of people, whether you agree with it or not, look at Universal as much more, it's simple, which I agree with that. It's simple. It's much more guest friendly. I think I do like how they treat their annual pass holders. I think they do more for the annual pass holders versus Disney World. And I think a lot of people look at Universal as of the anti-Disney, I guess you could say, in many ways, and are turning toward them. Now, we'll have to obviously wait and see how this plays out, but I don't necessarily think that just because Epic Universe is going to bring in these crowds, that's necessarily going to just bleed over to Disney. I'm sure on somewhat will. And when they're talking about SeaWorld and Legoland, I don't know necessarily. I mean, I don't think all of them are going to benefit. Maybe they will. I don't know. We'll have to see. It's been 20 years since a brand new theme park has been built. So a lot of this is just going off of guessing. And, there is one theory here. Sure, everybody could benefit from it. But at the same time, it could be very focused on just Universal in the fact that they're going to do things to get people to come. Like, they understand this as well. Like, they can't stop people from going to other places, but they're going to try and incentivize people to stay on their property as much as they can. I mean, they have the Brightline station going in, which is going to be almost a version of their Magical Express, kind of. I mean, there's going to be a station at the convention center, which is right near Epic Universe. I think they're probably going to offer some pretty steep discounts to people who are willing to book bigger packages to stay on property. Like, they're going to try and do things to get you to stay on property and just be on their parks and not go over to Disney and competitors like that. So it'd be curious to see if Disney does anything to try and, what kind of discounts do they offer? Like, I could see a scenario where Disney's offering major discounts next summer to try and get people to come over, because Disney's also not going to have any new attractions that are to pull people over. I mean, that's the other scenario about this is okay, why would people come over to Disney World, and cut a Universal trip short when Universal has all the new stuff and maybe, they are going to limit access to Epic Universe on some level, but there's still a lot of things that people enjoy at Universal Studios. I mean, they have Islands of Adventure as a top 5 theme park in the entire world, and both of their existing parks are top 10 in the world. So Disney's going to have to do some things to try and pull people over there to them. So they very may well do that. I guess it would depend on if Disney being down this summer, how much does it benefit them next summer? Is it even close to where they have been traditionally? And yet Universal is seeing a massive uptick. That's still not a good thing for Disney because they're also switching this thing now where Universal Studios and Epic Universe are driving the Orlando market, and Disney's just a beneficiary factor of that. I'm sure they don't like that scenario, and that's not a place they want to be. They want to be the market drivers. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, between now and Epic Universe opening, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of articles like this theorizing things. There's going to be videos like mine that are going to be theorizing ideas. And who knows? I'm not claiming to have all the answers here, but I definitely think it's a little bit of a more nuanced scenario than what they're playing out in this article. But that's going to do it for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. We do lots of coverage of Epic Universe, Universal Studios, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, do you agree with this article? Do you think that Disney World is going to benefit from Epic Universe? Or do you think it's a little bit more complicated and maybe Disney doesn't have quite the bump from Epic Universe that this article and some others are theorizing? So until next time, we will see you in the parks.